All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out. It's a cold, cold night, and you're all here. That's great. So we'll start out with that. Kind of want to take you to a different place and a different time. They live among you, and you probably don't even know. They're the survivors of World War II. It was a moving experience for me to hear the poignant story of a lady who not only survived but endured the raw years after the war. Her words flowed as I took page after page of notes. She drew me into her life experience as if I was living it right with her. Mirjana's story began in the country of Croatia before World War II. The real Croatian flag. And believe it or not, the blouse I'm wearing to add to the atmosphere is also from World War II Croatia. And her slippers and a scarf. Amazing that such beautiful handmade things could survive that long for so many years from Croatia to Wayne County. All right. So Mirjana's story, as I said, started with Croatia. She trembled and tightened as she absorbed the ominous silence around her. Mirjana heard the whispers by day and the toll of the church bells in the darkness of night. The words of Mirjana had to be told, had to be written. I give it to you in the book, They Brought Tarnished Secrets. Be still and stop for a moment. I want you to go back to that time, that place. You are in your home when a strong knock comes on the door. It's hit again and again with a strong fist. This was not a pleasant visitor. You are young, yet old enough to understand. You feel your blood flow from warm to ice cold. In a state of mental numbness, you watch as your father is forced to leave and join the German military. Within minutes, he was gone. Can you imagine how a young child would feel? The following days and weeks blurred into a time of sadness and growing fear. I'd like you to picture a drummer who walked these old stone streets of Croatia, and his drum, he struck it hard. Listen, see if you can hear it. He struck it so hard because he was giving them a message, a very frightening message to prepare for what was coming that night. So hours later, after their preparation, they hid from the coming danger. Heavy footsteps crashed against the bare wooden floorboards. Their hearts pounded. Katka placed her fingers to her lips as she begged for silence from her young daughters. She didn't want even a gasp of fear to escape from their lips because she knew it would give them away. That night of horror found made a forced decision. A dramatic letter was sent. A trick meeting happened with loved ones. The bittersweet reunion ended as the loss of love happened again, almost more than they could bear. After the secret meeting with the abrupt ending, there was a small ray of hope. A crumpled note had been pushed into Katika's pocket. It had an address and only 2 words, but they were full of meaning. Attic room. This was only the beginning of a life adventure filled with everything from fear, sadness, and courage. And of all places, it led from Croatia to Wayne County, New York State. I'd like to read a single page from the book. It will tell you what it felt like to live the history of World War II. The following morning did not give them the chance to discuss the strange event of last night. Instead, the sharp sound of sirens blasted through the air. Without words, Matej gathered his family. They raced down the wooden staircase with anxiety building with each step. Maria spoke. I want to go faster, but I don't want to fall. Hannah replied, I'm so slow. Katka, take the girls. Go ahead to the woods. Mirjana's lips trembled. The sirens are relentless. The bombs must be coming. Mattai pushed them towards the forest. His Hannah had caught up. They heard the hiss of a bomb as it sliced through the sky. Only a short distance away, it thundered to the ground. Fear pierced their hearts as they ran faster and faster. The bright, deep green of the woods was just before them. Never had it looked so beautiful. The homeowners were there before them. Their arms waved in rapid motion as they showed the location of the bunker. "Hurry, hurry," they shouted. Marjana was the first to arrive at the edge of the hidden bunker. It had been dug deep into the forest floor, with a tough rope to help them get in. Maria, her face white with fear, was lowered into the hole first. Hannah rubbed against the dirt walls as she was dropped into hiding. The family from Croatia dreamed of America. From the lands of Europe to the ground we walk. I tried to capture their story on the pages of this book. Through the empathy and kindness of people living here, this strong, courageous family found tranquility and peace in our beautiful county. Their history enriched ours as we became one. I want to open this up to a lot of questions, but before I do that, I'd like to thank the Newark-Arcadia Historical Society because they keep heritage alive here, and we're fortunate to have this museum. And as you've heard, there are many intricate details of history right here where we live, even the memories of World War II survivors. So now I'd love to take your questions, and we have our main character right here with us. That's a blessing.
Any questions?
How did you land up in Wayne County? How did you end up in Wayne County, or how did you went, your family?
It's on.
You have to forgive me. I'm not in the best of shape, but I'm glad to be here. And I want to thank Sharon for enduring 2 years of getting together with me and listening to my life story. And she has done a wonderful job of conveying to you what a child would have felt and did feel going through the war years. I think you will enjoy Sharon's writing, and she captured the emotions of not only this little girl growing up in the war years, but also those of my parents and my grandparents, with whom we spent 6 years in a refugee camp during and after the war. And so, Sharon, I cannot convey enough of our gratitude for your kindness in sharing this story. How it came to be, can I tell?
Sure.
After leaving Croatia as a child, I returned for the first time in 2015 to the village where I was born. And so Sharon heard my presentation to the Newark Rotary Club, and she became so interested in my life story that we would meet regularly, not only with a lot of joy, but a lot of tears, because there were many memories that I experienced as a child and I buried in the back of my memory in order to forget what it was like during the war years. And I cannot tell you how proud I am to be living in this country and to be experiencing the freedom that we have here. I'm proud to be a citizen. My family all lives close by, so we're enjoying the hospitality of Newark and Wayne County and the goodness of people who took in so many war refugees. I think it would be interesting to do a little history on Wayne County and all the families from war-torn Europe who found their new homes in Wayne County. I can tell you they all became contributors to the life that we have here. They all had jobs, they were successful in their businesses, and it's because of the generosity of the people who helped us get started. You have to imagine, we could not speak English. We could not drive a car. And we had been living in camps for 6 years, and to come and enjoy all the freedoms that we have here. The book is interesting in that Sharon did a wonderful job conveying the feelings of what it was like living during the war years. I won't say any more. I would be so happy to answer any questions, how we came here, and what it was like to live in a camp.
Hannelora, tell us how you met your husband.
Okay. And you know I don't hear
How
that.
you met your husband. They want to hear how you met your husband. How you met, how you.
Oh, how I met my husband. You know, somebody in Rotary said, Hannelora, you really should have another book written, because I met my husband in Canada. Now you have to imagine this. We're both born in the same village. Our families fled the village at different times. And so they ended up living in refugee camps in Germany. I ended up living in a refugee camp in Austria. We're now growing up, and we meet in Canada, where my parents, my family went on vacation. And I was very young when we met, but we decided we were meant for each other, and we married. And I became a citizen of the United States, so I could sponsor him to come to the United States from Canada, which he did. So we were married in Rose, as the book talks about, where we settled, and came to Newark because the job he had was with Jackson and Perkins, which many of you know. So we've lived in Newark all these years, brought up our children here, and we love this community. And to be able to share some of my life, our life, with you through this book is just a wonderful experience. Thank you, Joy.
How old were you when you came over here? And
Did you have to have a sponsor to come over here?
It's a little bit complicated, how we came to Rose. I was 12 when we came to the United States. So our sponsor was in Cincinnati, Ohio. My father is a tailor by profession, and the book describes what my father did during the Second World War. My mother's sister was sponsored by the Rose Baptist Church. And the Baptist Church sponsored several families. Well, we found when we came to visit her that this felt like home. So my mother, my father, and my brother, we all packed up and we moved to Rose, New York. And that's how we got to Wayne County. But at the time that we came into Wayne County, there were already several other families that had been sponsored that were war refugees, were sponsored by churches and other townships. So it felt kind of good that we heard the German language occasionally. And some of you of the older generation may remember that there was a bakery in Lyons called Ginsler's Bakery. I don't know if there's any Lyons residents here. But they came to the United States in the 1930s, but they spoke German. So you can imagine how relieved we were that there was somebody that could speak German. But on the other hand, it forced us to learn English really quick so that we don't have to do sign language, look at pictures to understand what people were talking.
You said that, well, I'm going to lead into something else. Did you have apples in Croatia? Did you have apples in Croatia?
Apples?
Apples.
Okay. I want to tell you that the area where I was born in Croatia is known as the Green Belt because it was very productive. Not only was there animal farming, wheat, corn, many of the regular agriculture that we experience here in Wayne County was also in this part of Croatia. And my ancestors were farming this land for over 100 years. Thank you. It's more. So we had apple trees, cherry trees, peach trees, and I remember those as a child. It was not unusual for the farmers to have fruit trees in their yards. And we all had our animals because we lived off the land and what it produced. And today, this is still the agriculture that is being experienced in this region. And what is now very popular are farms that have agri-tours. In other words, people think of people can come and live and work on the farm for a week. It was like we're going skiing and people are going on farms to experience farm life. So it's a very popular tourist attraction. Beautiful country. It's green, rolling hills like we have in Boone County.
The reason I asked her about the apples was because, well, let's back up just a little bit. I didn't endure being with her for 2 years writing this book. It was a pleasure. A fascinating pleasure. One thing that intrigued me early on was, and the reason I asked about the apples, when they finally got on a ship that was bringing them to America, she was thrilled. It was Christmas Eve, and she found an orange on her pillow when she woke up in the morning, and she wasn't sure what it was. So there's a lot of little interesting details like that you'd never guess or find in a regular history book. All kinds of things. And for those of you that are interested, I spoke with one lady, and she said that she had, I believe it was a granddaughter interested in possibly in writing. And there's a lot to it. It's not at all what it seems to be. I would encourage it, but there's all kinds of angles to look at it. As we were writing this and had it almost ready to go, the publisher put a big red flag on it and said, no way, no how, we're not publishing it. And I'm thinking, all right, why? And, I just felt so strongly that it needed to be told as kind of a story, and even more so today, the way things are going. And he came across and he said that he wanted to be considered fiction, probably to protect her, me, anyone involved. But, so it's called fiction, but it isn't. I didn't live with Hannelora, of course, so I had to make up some of it, but a great deal of it, probably 95% of it is true. And then another interesting part is, as we were writing it, so fascinating, so interesting, all the history. And then I can't get over that she ends up in Wayne County. It just seems so far away from Croatia. But she was telling me all of this, and I'm thinking, okay. And I said, well, we got a lot of history. Should we put in something just to give it a little twist? And in that lovely accent that she still has, at least I hear it, she says she likes twist. And so we put it in, but then she goes back to Croatia and finds out the twist wasn't a twist. So when you're reading it, you'll have to keep your eyes open for that too. But so much fascinating things.
When you went back to Croatia, were you able to connect with anyone you had known from your childhood?
Anyone, when you went back to Croatia, did you connect with anyone you knew?
I did. In the village, and we were very fortunate. My husband did not go back. He did not want to go because his memories are a little different than mine. He had a much harder experience than I did. And he was older, so he could remember a lot. But getting back to your question, our tour guide, who was bilingual, spoke English and Croatian, and he was able to do some research on who is living in the village now. And he found one lady who could speak German and Croatian, and that was a blessing to me because I still speak German. So he contacted her and asked if we could meet with her and if she would give us a short tour of the village. The village, population-wise, is the same as when I left. But you have to think what happened during the war. Practically all of the village was destroyed. This lady was just as old as I am, so she remembered where some of the families lived. And I had a map of the village with all the names of the people that owned the houses, the name of the streets, and I knew where my family lived, where our churches were, my grandparents. So she guided us to those places, but all those homes are gone. But as I often told our children and my friends at Rotary, when I walked that street, I don't know what it was. I was magnetized, and I said, this is where I played as a child, on the sidewalk. Our churches are gone. The only thing that is remaining is the church tower. And it has the year when the village was founded, 1886. So I'm happy that I was able to connect with one person who knew the village and still lives there. So I wrote to her a few times, but I never got a response. And I understand that, because they are now all Croatians, the Germans are all gone. There is really nothing there except that church tower to remind, it used to be there. And I'm okay. It was sad to leave, but also it was happy because I could see where I was born. Thank you.
Sometimes I think we take it for granted. We've lived here a long time, but I don't think we understand truly how many people from these countries so far away have added to Wayne County. I worked for a doctor years ago, and he explained a very similar situation as I read to you about her father being taken away from her. His father also, he saw him at the kind of the border between North and South Korea, and it was a wave and goodbye. He walked away from them. They never saw him again, ever. And again, this doctor settled in Wayne County. So it's just amazing what we get here with the different cultures and peoples. And they've all added so much. Any other questions? Yes.
Were they able to emigrate with the extended family? Was her grandparents, did they emigrate with them? And were they able to settle together in rows?
Did your family were they all able to settle together in rows?
The generation.
Now, once you got here to America, his question is how many were able to settle here with you?
The generations.
Generations.
Yeah. So who came here with my family? Eventually, my mother's brothers came here, and of course the sister in Rose that got my family to come here. And we all had our children and stayed in Wayne County, so they're all over. And at the time that my grandmother passed away in 1982, our family counted 86. So, yeah, you can see, like I said, we were successful in staying here and keeping our children here. So I'm lucky because our children live in Newark and in Clifton Springs. So, yeah, we all have a deep connection to Wayne County and to the kindness that we were shown. And we're hoping that we will continue to contribute and help others. So we're very lucky. My husband and I were part of resettling several Laotian families. I'm sure you can remember the 70s and the 80s. And we've been trying to, volunteer in our community through Rotary and supporting the museum for all the good work. Because we have no home. We only have the home that we founded when we got here. So maybe 100 years from now, one of the other family members will write about their grandparents coming to America. Yes, I'm looking at their granddaughter. She's quite a good writer, like you.
When we started this project, Hannelora said, I want you to go to a cemetery in North Rose. And I'm not always good about going to cemeteries, in all honesty. But she said, go, because I want you to feel and see the gravestones of my family. And it'll help you create it in your mind. So that was a good beginning for me, because it did put me even deeper into her thoughts and her life. And again, if you walk through these cemeteries, you'll be amazed at how many have come from so far away. And here they are in our Wayne County cemeteries, resting at last.
Sharon, ever tell us about arriving in New York City on Christmas?
Do you want to tell them about arriving in New York City on Christmas Eve?
Oh, when we arrived. My whole family knows that I am just crazy about Christmas. And it's because I came to America on Christmas Eve. Our ship came into the harbor in New York City, and it was evening, and we could see the Statue of Liberty all lit up, and all of us on the ship. Now you have to imagine the ship. It's a military transport ship that was recruited by the United Nations Refugee Relief Agency to take refugees to countries that would take in these war refugees. So we came into the harbor, we're all on board of the ship, looking at the statue, and the closer we got to New York City, all those wonderful lights. That's what I saw, my first glimpse of America. And it was on Christmas Eve, December 24, and we had to stay on the ship till December 26 before we were cleared to come into this country. So we were looking at New York City for 2 days. And on top of our ship was a Christmas tree that the staff of the ship, which were all military personnel that were taking care of keeping order on the ship, and seeing to it that we were fed. And Sharon described very nicely in her book what it was like to be on this military ship. And again, she mentioned the orange. There was this wonderful man, military police, who would leave a fruit on my bed. So we had bunk beds. My mother slept up on top and I was on the bottom. So I must have reminded him, maybe he had a daughter or maybe a sister, whatever, but he left his orange on my bed. And one time he left a grapefruit, and I didn't know what a grapefruit was. So I found out.
Okay, any more questions? All right, well, thank you all again for coming.
Thank you.
Quite the lady here, a lot of history, and again.